Hello everyone. Today I'll be taking a class on different theories in development of child, the child psychology. Okay. So why do we need to study child psychology? See, in pediatrics, it's special because we are concerned with the overall health of the child. Okay. So children who are at times angels and who are sometimes, too terrible to handle. So just to gain the cooperation of the patient, to treat them, to teach them how to attain better dental health measures, we need to be aware of the role of behavior in determining the success. Okay. So it is the childhood experiences, which lead to the personality and behavior of a mature individual. As the saying goes that as the twig is bent, so grows the tree. Okay, therefore it's important for us to study child psychology. These are the aims why we need to, understand different theories in development of a child. This is to understand the child better so that we can deal with them more effectively and efficiently for a better planning and interaction between the treatment plan. Also to identify any kind of problems of psychosomatic origin, to train the child so that the child understands what are the child's own capabilities and help modify the child's developmental process. Okay. So now I'll classify the theories into the main types. Okay. So these can be broadly classified into psychodynamic theories and behavioral learning theories. And apart from that, there are certain other theories also. Okay, so the main theories which we need to understand are the psychodynamic theories. So the first one is psychosexual or psychoanalytical theory, which was put forward by Sigmund Freud in 1905. Then psychosocial theory, which was given by Erik Erikson in 1963. The cognitive theory, which was given by Jean Piaget in 1952. Okay, then the other types of theories are behavioral learning theories. Okay, so the one is this one is classical conditioning by Ivan Pavlov, then operant conditioning by B.F. Skinner, then social learning theory by Albert Bandura, and hierarchy of needs by Abraham Maslow. Okay, there are certain other theories like separation and individualization theory by Margaret Mahler, attachment theory, etc. Okay, so the main theories are these psychodynamic and the behavioral learning theories, which we need to understand in detail. Okay, so there are different approaches to how to, study psychology. So an approach is basically a perspective, okay, which involves certain assumptions about the human behavior. So the different approaches are biological perspective. It basically emphasizes on the physical and the biological basis of the behavior. Okay, then comes the behavioral aspect, which focuses on the learned behaviors. Okay, then cognitive perspective is the one which focuses on the mental processes like memory, thinking, problem solving, language, and decision making. Okay, then comes the cross-cultural perspective. Cross-cultural perspective is the one where, how the culture influences the thinking and behavior is studied. Okay, then evolutionary is the mental processes. It states that mental processes, they exist because, there is an evolutionary purpose behind everything. Okay, then psychodynamic perspective, it has, it is much deeper approach, to study the problems of psychosomatic origin. Okay, to study people who are suffering from mental illnesses. So this is to study the role of unconscious mind, all those things. So these are the different approaches, okay, which are involved in studying the different theories of psychology. So first and foremost, which we'll be covering is the classical psychoanalytical theory, or it's also known as psychosexual theory, which was given by Sigmund Freud in 1905. He's also known as the father of modern day psychiatry. Okay, so Freud, he divided the mind into three different levels of, personality. He also compared this to an iceberg. I'll be showing that in next slide. Okay, so he said that the human mind, it can be divided into these three levels. That is conscious, pre-conscious and unconscious. Okay, so conscious is all the sensations, all the experiences of which we are aware at any given time. Okay, so this is a limited aspect of personality. Then comes the pre-conscious. Pre-conscious is the storehouse of all the memories, perceptions, and thoughts of which we are not consciously aware at that particular moment, but we can easily summon it into our consciousness. Okay. Then the third level is unconscious. That is the larger invisible portion which is below the surface of that iceberg which I was telling. So this is the focus of the psychoanalytical theory. Okay. So all the major driving power or forces behind all the behaviors, okay, they are stored in this unconscious level. Okay. So he compared human mind to iceberg. Okay, that the small part which is seen above the level of the sea is conscious experiences, okay, of which we are aware at that given moment of time, and the large part is the pre-conscious unconscious portion. Okay, so a smaller pre-conscious part, and then a larger unconscious store of all the impulses, passion, inaccessible memories which affect our thoughts and behavior. Okay. He also gave a topographic model of psychic triad. So Freud in 1923 gave this model that id, ego, and superego are the three structures in his theory to understand the intrapsychic processes. Okay, he Freud's general notion was that our behavior is influenced by all these principles. The biological drives, the id, okay, then the mediating thought process, which is ego, and the social rules, which is superego. Okay, I'll show you an example. See, if we look at something and think that I want this thing or I need this, that is our id which is telling us to do so. Okay, so id is solely based on pleasure principle or our quick instinct. Then comes the role of the superego. Superego is the one which guides our mind that you can't have it, or you must not have it, or you're not allowed to do that. Okay, so these things are told to us by the superego. And then it is the ego which tells that there is a certain process you probably can attain or achieve that particular thing, but you have to do something to achieve it. Okay, so that is the ego which guides us. So ego is based on reality principle. It tells us about the reality. This is just the pleasure principle. Okay, you want that. And superego is based on morality. That is the social values. Okay, so it is the most primitive part of the personality. It's the basic structure which serves as a reservoir of instincts. Okay, it is present at the time of birth as impulse and strives for immediate pleasure and gratification. Okay, so it is solely based on pleasure principle, like I told. Okay, then comes ego. So ego serves as a master of both, that is id and reality. So it is based on reality principle. It's concerned with the state in which an adequate expression of id can occur within the constraints of reality and the demands and restrictions of the superego. Superego is putting the restrictions. This is not, you're not supposed to do this, or if you want this you have to. Like, I'll give you a small example. If a child goes to a bakery shop and wants to eat a pastry, okay, so the child will immediately look at a pastry which he or she likes and will say that I want this. Okay, so that is the id which is telling that I want this. Then the superego tells that you can't have it just like that. You'll have to pay some money, okay, for it. So then it is the ego which allows the child to ask for some money from the parent, give it to the shopkeeper, and then have that pastry in return for that money. Okay, so this is how it works. Ego spans all the three topographic dimensions of the conscious, the pre-conscious, and the unconscious. Okay. Then comes the superego, which is, I have discussed already, it's based on morality principle. Okay, the values and the morals of the society as taught to the child by the parents, and it is essentially the individual conscience. Okay, and it judges whether the action is right or wrong. Okay, So this is another example just to summarize. So it is something which tells you I want it now, and then it is a super ego which tells you you can't have it just like that. It's not right. And then ego is the one which tells you that you need to do some a bit of planning to get it in order to get it. Okay. So now we'll be covering the various stages of the psychosexual development. According to Freud, what we do, why we do it, and who we are and how we become this way. All these things are related to the sexual drive differences in personality which originate during childhood. Okay, so he gave 5 stages of sexual development, and he tells that a proper resolution of the conflicts at all the stages will lead to the child progress past one stage to another. Okay, if there is any kind of failure to achieve a proper resolution, then that will make the child fixated in the present stage, and this is believed to be the cause of many of the personality and behavior disorders which occur later at an adult stage. Okay, so let's see what all are the stages. The first one is oral stage. Okay, this is from age 0 to 1.5 years. Okay, it's the earliest stage of development. Okay, here the erogenous zone is which is in focus is mouth, and the gratifying activities are nursing, eating, as well as mouth movement, which include sucking, biting, swallowing, all those things. Okay. So here the interaction with the environment is that for the infant, the mother's breast is not just the source of food, but also it represents her love. Okay. So here the child's personality is controlled entirely by id. Okay. And both insufficient and forceful feeding can cause fixation. So the symptoms of oral fixation include smoking, nail biting, drinking, or sarcasm at a later stage of life. Okay. Then comes the second stage, which is the anal stage. This is from the age 1.5 to 3 years. Here the erogenous zone which is in focus is the anus, and the gratifying activities are the bowel movements and withholding of such movements. Okay. The interaction with the environment that is most important during this stage is toilet training, and a process through which the children they are taught to when and where and how to excrete, and how that is deemed appropriate by the society. Children at this stage they start to notice the pleasure and the displeasure which is associated with bowel movements through toilet training. Okay. Then comes the urethral stage, which is again at 3 years of age. Here, erogenous zone and focus is, it is basically a transitional stage between the anal and the phallic stage. So the gratifying activity is pleasure in urination, and interaction with the environment is urethral erotism, pleasure in urethral retention. Okay. Then comes the phallic stage. Okay, this is in the age 4 to 5 years. Here, erogenous zone is genitals. Okay, so the interaction with the environment, the child's feeling of attraction towards the parent of the opposite sex, together with the envy and fear of the same sex parent. Okay, so in boys, the situation is called as Oedipus complex, and it is named after a young man in the Greek mythology. And boys, in midst of this Oedipus complex, they often experience, just remember this term, castration anxiety. So castration anxiety is the fear of punishment from the father and the desire for the mother. Okay, so the child, according to Freud, has a fear of damage being done to their genitalia by the parent of the same sex during this stage. Okay, and in girls, similar type of attraction towards the father is called as electra complex. Okay, so for the girl, the sequence begins with erotic focus on the father, and also the girl notices that she does not have the sexual organ of her father or brothers, so she experiences penis envy. Okay, and she suspects that she might have been castrated by her mother. This makes her angry, and she comes to resent and devalue her mother, but on the other side she eventually identifies with her mother, partly because she knows that if she takes her mother's characteristics, so she'll stand a better chance at winning the father's heart, or since she's more attracted towards the father. Okay, just remember these two terms, electra complex and penis envy. Okay. Then comes the stage, latency stage. This is at age 5 years to puberty. Okay, so the erogenous zone which is in focus is none during this stage. Probably that's a reason it's called a latent stage. Okay, so this is a period during which the sexual feelings are suppressed to allow the children to focus their energy on other aspects of life, according to Freud. So this is a time where children are adjusting to the social environment outside the home. They're absorbing the cultures, forming their own beliefs and values, developing same-sex friendship, and engaging in sports activities. Okay. Then comes the genital stage. This is from age puberty onwards. The erogenous zone which is in focus is the genitals. Okay, gratifying activities are heterosexual relationships. The interaction with the environment, this stage is marked by a renewed sexual interest and the desire and pursuit of relationship. Okay, there are three major sources of sexual arousal during this period. One is memories and sensations from the earlier childhood periods, then the physical manipulation of the genitals and other erogenous zones, and hormonal secretion. Okay, the symptoms of fixation usually does not cause any fixation, but according to Freud, if people experience difficulty during this stage, then probably the damage was done earlier during the oral or the anal and phallic stages. For example, attraction to the opposite sex can be a source of anxiety at this stage if the person has not successfully resolved the Oedipus or the Electra conflict. Okay. Now let's see, there were some limitations of Freud's theory. People believe that the approach which was used was quite pessimistic and deterministic, and it's a pathology-based theory. Also, there has been a lot of emphasis on the infantile sexuality, as we've seen, and there is no controlled studies. So basically, poor research was done. Also, overemphasis on differences between men and women. Okay, and it was concerned with the interpersonal relations, the individual identity, and adaptation over one's lifetime. All those aspects were not covered in this theory. Okay. So this completes Freud's theory of psychoanalytical theory or psychosexual theory. Okay, in the next sections, I'll be covering the other psychosocial theory and cognitive theory, and then we'll be taking up social learning theory separately. Okay, so I'll discuss two, three questions over here. So one is the third stage of Sigmund Freud's psychosexual theory is. Okay, so you might be asked a simple question like this, where the answer would be phallic stage, oral, anal, phallic stage. Okay, so just remember these stages in order. Then question 2 is, according to psychosexual theory, the stage which corresponds with development of mixed intention and character formation. Okay, so here just um, focus on this mixed intention period. So probably the child is obviously above 5 years. Okay, so 5 to 6 years to 10 to 12 years. During this stage, the child has mixed intention. Okay, so just remember during that stage, maturation of ego is taking place. Okay, and according to Freud, that stage is latent stage or the stage of latency. Okay, so the answer is B. Also, this question can be framed as the phase that ends in puberty according to Freud's psychosexual theory. So then also the answer would remain same, that is latency stage. Okay, so you might be asked questions like this. Then simple questions like it is related to instinct, okay, or pleasure, or it is based on pleasure principle. So the answers might be in that form. Then there is another question which is rapid form of learning is known as motivation, imprinting, change of behavior, change of attitude. So rapid form of learning is also called as imprinting because actually it is a rigid form of learning, not rapid, but it has been printed in that manner in the question paper. So just remember, imprinting is a rigid form of learning, but if you are asked a question rapid form of learning, answer it as imprinting. Okay. So a small conclusion that it is important for us to understand the mechanisms of how the behavior is acquired and behavior shaping takes place is important in managing and guiding the child's behavior during the dental visit. That is our sole concern. Okay, so it permits us to create an environment to facilitate the child's ability to ultimately accept care and enhance the work quality and efficiency of the dental personnel. Okay, so this is the basic reason why we need to study these theories of child development. Okay, now I'll be covering the other theories in the other sections. Okay, thank you so much. All the very best.